Hello and welcome to this demonstration on System Center Configuration Manager. So this is just a series of demos that I'll be doing on different technologies, different Microsoft technologies, different open source technologies, different enterprise technologies that you may come across. So in this particular one, I'll be showing briefly how to install System Center Configuration Manager 2012 how-to in your environment. And the process, well, it's not too straightforward, but it's a simple one. As long as you follow the steps that have been described by Microsoft, you'll be okay. So just to show you a brief intro of what we'll be doing today. So here's what we'll be doing. So we'll be installing a Configuration Manager 2012 how-to standalone primary site. And for those who don't know what a primary site is, if you go back and look at some of my other YouTube videos, especially the Hangout series that we've been doing on Configuration Manager, we do go into more details explaining all these concepts there. So these are the steps that I'll be following. First of all, we'll be working on our Active Directory environment, and we'll be extending the Active Directory schema. So this is not something that's required. It's actually something that's optional, but it's something that is extremely helpful. If you have an Active Directory environment, there's really very little risk to you, and there's a lot of benefits to extending your AD schema with all the configuration manager classes and attributes. So that's the first thing we'll be doing. Then we'll go ahead and create the system management container and assign the right permissions to that container. And the reason for this is so that configuration manager can publish items or publish information into Active Directory, and it's going to be publishing information into this particular container. So the site system has to have permissions to this container. And then after that, what we'll be doing is we'll be validating just some configuration manager prerequisites or prerequisites, however you want to pronounce it. So we'll validate the prerequisites and then we'll install the standalone site. And then the remaining steps will just be to verify what we've done and show you how to do the verification. So for this demonstration, I currently have two systems. I have one system, Learn CFG, which is my configuration manager, which will be the server that will be installing configuration manager on. And I have a domain controller, which is where we'll be extending our AD schema and the other sorts. So let's get right into it now. Okay. So right now I'm on Learn DC1, which is my domain controller. And the domain that I've created and joined here, I've called it typical Microsoft Adatum or Adatum, however you want to pronounce it, .com. And yeah, let's just go ahead and extend the Active Directory schema. So to do that, if you have your configuration manager CD, DVD, which is rare in this case, or downloaded ISO, if you have that, that's what you'll be using. So in this case, I've already downloaded the ISO, extracted it, and saved it in a location on the network. So I'll go to the location right now. So that's on Learn CFG. And on the E drive, go via the administrative share. And under here are the extracted files. So if you extract your ISO, these are the files and folders that you find in them. So under here, under SMS setup, under bin, and under x64. So this is where you find a file called extadscheme.exe or just extadsch.exe. So that's the file that you have to run to extend your Active Directory schema. So I know there are lots of people that will take a lot of precautions regarding making any schema modifications. And the reason for that is because this is one of those changes that's really, really difficult to revert. Actually, it's a change that you cannot revert. For you to revert, you have to basically restore your Active Directory environment from backup. So it's not something that you can just click a button and go, oops, that failed. I need to go back. Once you've done it, to roll back, you need to roll back your entire Active Directory environment. And if you have multiple domain controllers in your environment, you could be in for a very long day or very long time of work. Okay, so I can either just double click on it to run it, or I can just browse to it via the command line and run it any which way I want to run it. In this case, I'll just double click on it. So double click on it. So I must make sure that for you to be able to do anything that has to do with the schema, you must be a schema admin in Active Directory. So if you make sure that you have that right, or the accounts that you're using has that right in Active Directory. So I've run that and it looks as if nothing happened. Everything just went really quickly. So the way to confirm what happened, if I go back under the C drive, under the root of the C drive, and I'll see this log file here called extaddsch.log. And if I open this log file, there I'll see exactly what has happened in this case. So I can see the beginning of the log file modifying Active Directory schema with SMS extensions, which is what it's doing. The schema partition is where it's going to be making the change. And then these are the attributes that it's adding. So I'm adding an attribute called CNMS SMS site code. Again, all this, anyone that's familiar with ConfigMgr knows exactly what all this means. It's like music to your ears. Site code, assignment site code, site boundaries, roaming boundaries, default MP, device management point name, management point address. So it's just adding attributes for this and some classes, which is SMS management point. So now we can define an object within Active Directory that's SMS management point, and we have different attributes for that. Okay, so at the end of this, we can just go through and make sure that there's no error. At the end of this, we have this message that said successfully extended the Active Directory schema. So that's done. Let's go back to our battle card. So extending the AD schema, it's done. Really simple, straightforward. So the next thing that we'll be doing is we'll create a system management container and give it the right permissions. And the reason for this is the reason for extending the schema is so that config manager can publish information into Active Directory, and this will make different activities of different configuration manager activities easy for the client, because your clients are already integrated with your domain. So what could happen in that situation is your client, for example, can hack the domain controllers and say, which management point should I use and all the stuff. And they can use it for assigning themselves to sites. So there's a lot of goodness that comes when you do that. So config manager can publish all this information. Now the thing is the what do I use to put it? The information, or how do I put it? The thing that describes the type of objects that config manager will be publishing in Active Directory. That's what we've done in extending the schema. But where will it be publishing that information is the next thing that we'll be doing. So to do that, let's bring up Server Manager here. So I'm still on the domain controller. Everything I've done since I've been on the domain controller. So I go under Add Edit, which allows me to dig deep into the Active Directory database. So I'll connect to it, and I'll connect to the default naming context. And for those that are familiar with Active Directory terminology, that's referring to your domain partition within the ntds.date directory information tree. Okay, so right here, so we have a container here called system. So what we'll do is under this container called system, we'll create a new container called system management. So whenever config manager wants to publish anything to Active Directory, it looks for this container. It's been programmed to look for this container called that. So if I right click on that, I can go new object. And the type of object I want is a container. I can go next. Now the name is system management, not system management, not systems management, all singular. System management. Okay. So go next and finish, and that's done. Now I have this container, really simple. So now we have the type of objects that we'll be publishing to Active Directory. We have where we're going to be publishing it, but do we have the rights to publish it? So that's the next thing that we'll be doing. So typically in a production environment, you probably won't be using a single machine. So what you probably do is go on the Active Directory users and computers, create a security group, and put your config manager site servers, if you have more than one, put them in that security group. Even if you have one, it's just a good practice to use um, a security group rather than assigning, permissions to objects, because that just saves you a lot of effort down the road. It will save you a lot of effort. So I can go on the advanced features there in order for me to see the system container. And then if I expand this, I can see my system management container that I created right here. So if I go on the properties, go on the security, so I can go hard. So actually, let's just, yeah. So what I'm doing now, even though it's a demo, it's bad practice, really bad practice. Don't do this in production. Make sure you create a security group, put your site server in that security group, then assign the permission to the security group. So down the road, if you were to have a new site server, all you need to do is drop it in that security group and it will inherit all the permissions. So you don't have to be tracing everything one after the other. So this is bad practice what I'm doing right now. So object, let me select the option to find computer object, launch config manager, and there we go. So I'll click on the advanced button, and after that comes up, what we'll be doing is we'll be giving the config manager site server full control of this particular container, but not only to the container, but all the all the objects that are under this container. So that's what we'll be doing. So if I select this, let's click on edit, permissions, I want full control, and I'll say this permission that I'm assigning here, I want it to not only apply to this object, but I want it to apply to this object and now send an object. And I click OK to that, apply, OK, OK, done. That's it, done. Yeah, we've created a system management container, we've given it the right permissions. So now we can go to our config manager server and now begin the process. So before we begin the process, we have to make sure that our prerequisites are in place. So part of these I won't be demonstrating because I've already done them, and that's because they do take a long time to complete. So validate config manager prerequisites. Okay, so let me bring up a web page that will help you with this. So this is a web page that just a good online web page. Yeah, there we go. So this is a good website for config manager stuff by a guy called Prajwal Desai. Prajwal, if you're watching this, you're doing a nice job. Keep it up. Um, website is really helpful and really good. So there are some system roles and features that we have to install on the server that will be hosting our configuration manager site server role. So there are some system roles and features that has to be installed on that. So one of such roles is the web server role, IIS, because configuration manager makes use of IIS a lot. its management point, its distribution point, make use of IIS. So not only IIS, but then we also have to install certain features like the .NET Framework 3.5, .NET Framework 4.5, Bit, which is used for file transfer, and remote differential compression. So all these features has to be installed. So Microsoft actually has a good page. So I think I'll put links to this in the video below. So Microsoft has like good website that goes into details as to what exactly the prerequisites and why they're necessary and all that stuff. Um, but it's not only that, it's not only the prerequisites that we show there. So the web server, .NET Framework 3.5 and 4.5 bits, RDC, those has to be installed. But then there are other things that config manager needs, things like Windows ADK. So you have to have Windows ADK installed. Let's bring this one aside. There's a good web page by the one I just showed you now by Prajwal, but I think the guy's name is called Jerry Hampson. Has a good web page that goes into. Yep, I think it's Jerry Hampson. Here we go. So Jerry Hampson has like also good instructions that goes into step by step of what you need to do regarding this. So you need to download and install the Windows ADK, and after downloading and installing the Windows ADK, Windows Automated Distribution Kit, something like that. Um, so you have to install certain features in the Windows ADK like deployment tools, WinPE, because these are things that config manager will be using. It needs, you know, it needs to be able to create a boot image. Therefore, it's going to use WinADK to create your boot images and deployment tools and all those wonderful stuff. Um, You can also install Microsoft Deployment Toolkit if you're planning to integrate Config Manager with Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. The hope is that, this is like one of the first videos in this series that some of these things I'll be demonstrating in weeks and months to come and showing you step by step how to do that. So you also need your SQL Server installed. If you're not going to be using the default SQL Express, using SQL standard. But here's one thing I want to show you also. So I'll put the link. So here's a really good tool that you can download, run on your machine, and all you have to do is just go select primary site, select install prerequisite, and it takes care of all that for you. Apart from the SQL part, you still have to install SQL. It takes care of all of that for you and just really, really good one. So I'll put the link up to this in the video below. But I've already done all that just to show you quickly that I've already done all that. Let's bring up config manager. Let's bring up the server manager, sorry. And again, the one that we're doing right here is we just quickly validate that the prerequisites are installed. So why this one is coming up, let me just show you that I already have Windows ADK installed on my machine. So bring this one up, go under C, go under program files, program files x86, sorry. And then Windows Kit, and then I have Windows ADK 8.1 installed. So I've got these features. I have deployment tools, user state migration to WinPE. So when you're installing Windows ADK, those are the main three that you need. Can install others if you think you need them. So I've confirmed I have that installed. So actually I can just use PowerShell to confirm also. Let's make this bolder and bigger, make it easier for you to see. Yep, I go get Windows. We can get that. Get Windows feature. Let's see web. I'll just show you that I've installed IIS. Yeah, and actually let's just do it this way. Let's go get Windows feature. Let's go where object installed equals true. Format list. So this one should just show us. Yeah, I've made a mistake in the command line. So let's see where the mistake is. Oh, okay. Yep, send my mistake. Need my $sign here. Yeah, here we go. So gets me all the Windows features, roles that I installed, so I can see IIS is installed. I have .NET 3.5, .NET 4.5 installed. I have bits installed. I have bits installed. I have LDC installed. So yeah, just yeah, to confirm, I have installed the prerequisites. And then also if I go to my start button here and drill down, you see I have SQL Server installed already. So I have SQL already installed. So let's just go ahead and with the rest of the process. So now I've confirmed my prerequisites are installed. Now I can go ahead and install the config manager primary site. So again, this is just one of those really straightforward things. So provided that you have all the prerequisites right, you're good. So I'll just go to the location where I've extracted the ISO file, run this splash.html file, and select the option to run it using Microsoft HTML application host. And yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so I'm sure it's going to come up. So I'll probably pause the video not to waste your time. And this is back. Okay, so I can when you double click on that, you get this option. I can click on install. So again, this may take a while to respond depending on how fast your system is. By the way, your config manager system needs a lot of resources. So make sure it's not one of the servers that starve for resources in your environment. Because I clicked it twice. So make sure that it has adequate resources. So I think in in an environment where you have, let's say, about 3,000 devices to manage, we recommend having a bare minimum of 32 gig RAM on your config manager. Yes, it needs a lot of resources. And um, apart from the RAM, you have to increase the SQL RAM use to maybe about 16 gig. So then you get like really good performance. So again, it's just doing some stuff in the background. It will come up, and then I'll carry on with the recording. Okay, this come up now. Yeah, before you begin page. So it says before you run this wizard, verify that you have a supported Microsoft SQL Server installation available for Configuration Manager, which we do. Identify the FQDN of the computer that is running SQL Server, which we do. It's on this computer. If you're putting it on a different computer, you have to open the broker port. You have to open the SQL port between your config manager server and your configuration on your SQL server. Want you to read the release notes online for important information. we have all that down. Click the next button. Okay, and then after that, comes up with this option of, do you want to install a primary site, central admin site, which will also demonstrate to you shortly in this demonstration series. Do you want to recover a site? We'll demonstrate this one to you in this series. So this will be a really interesting set of demonstrations. So just stay tuned. So install a configuration manager, but this will just be pure demos. We won't be doing that much theory or explanation. That's for another forum which we have already. So in this case, assuming I want to install like SQL right now and just use the basic default and select this option, but that's not what I'm going to be doing. Most likely, that's not what you're going to be doing also in your production environment, because the version of SQL that you're running also limits the scalability of System Center Configuration Manager. So be careful about that. If you're running the standard version, you can't use Config Manager to its fullest capability. You can use it to its fullest capability, but you can't scale to the fullest capability. Let's say Config Manager, I think the latest version is the one I'm recording this, which is 18.11.2015. I think can support up to 650,000 devices, but that's only if you're using SQL Enterprise. If you're not using SQL Enterprise, you won't be able to support that number of devices due to limitations. So I'll just install the evaluation version. Go next. So the evaluation version will give you the ability to use it for 180 days. I accept the license agreement. So even though for example, I'm not going to be using SQL Expert, but I'll just accept the license agreement for this anyway to proceed. Click next. So now here's where it's going to try to download some other prerequisite files or prerequisite files, however you want to pronounce it, for Config Manager. So this is something that I could have downloaded previously, or if I have this machine has access to the internet, I can just go ahead and download it. So this is something I've already downloaded before, and I'll just browse to the location that I have it downloaded, and that's this location right there, and I'll go OK, and next. Then it's going to verify it. So again, I'll pause the recording and I'll start it up once it's finished. Okay, so it's just completing the verification of the previously downloaded files, which is done now. I select the language, so it says select the several languages that Config Manager displays in the console and report. So whatever language you want Configuration Manager to display to you in the console, or to for you to be able to run reports on, this is what you select here. So I'll only be working with English here, so I'll select English and go next. It says select the client languages for Configuration Manager to support. When you select a client language, it matches the display language of a client computer. The Configuration Manager client displays that language. English is the default language. It is used when Configuration Manager does not support the display language. So the clients that you'll be installing on the machines, the language that you want it to display, that's what you select here. Let's say you want to be able to install the Config Manager client on certain machine, the UI that you have in control panel, and have it display in Chinese or Danish or Finnish. You select the options there and you go next. So now I have to specify a site code. Every Configuration Manager site has a 3-character site code, which has to be unique. So in this case, I'll specify that. And the next thing that I'll have to do is I have to give the site a name. So which is a really straightforward one. I can say Edatum. I can call it whatever I want to call it. Edatum headquarters. Yep. I specify the installation folder. Let's say you want to install it to a separate drive. Here's where you can change that. I can specify to install the configuration manager console on this server, which I want it to. Then I click next. So now it's saying, do I want to join the primary site to an existing hierarchy? So this is in case you have a central admin site already that you want to join this config manager to. So this is the place where you specify the central admin site that will do the administration and reporting for the entire hierarchy. But in this case, and we'll be demonstrating this in this series. So I just want the primary site standalone for now. So this is an interesting one because I think prior to Service Pack 1, is it? Or prior to how to, once you have a primary site selected, that's it. But now what you can do is you can have a standalone primary site and then have it join a central admin site if you want for expansion purposes later in the future. So you don't have to have the CAS in the beginning. So it's giving me a little bit of information here to say, hey, you selected to install this site as a standalone primary site. But this is the good part. You can expand this site into a hierarchy at a later time by installing central admin site. Do you want to continue? Which is really good news. Yes, I want to continue. And here's where I configure the SQL bit. So by itself, it gave itself a name and said, I'll create a database name called CMLON, um, which is CM Configuration Manager and the site code. He said, and the service broker port will be this. So he says, specify the TCP port number for SQL Server Service Broker. If you use something else, you have to change it there. So this port is different from the port you used by the SQL Server service, which is automatically detected. Again, remember that all the SQL ports, including this service broker port, if you have a firewall between your SQL Server and your config manager, you have to um, enable this access on the firewall. So if I just wanted to make use of the default SQL instance, let's say I don't have a named instance, I just leave this blank. If I have a named instance, I can put a named instance there. Okay, let's go next, and we're almost there. Yep, so I can specify the path to the SQL Server data file or log file. The SMS provider, let's say you want to install this on a separate computer, this is where you specify it. So the SMS provider is the link between the configuration manager console and the database. And then, hey, do you want all your site systems to only accept secure communication using HTTPS? In which case you have to have a PKI infrastructure. No, I want to be able to decide that on each site system role, so which I'll select. Or I can say, hey, if the client support HTTPS, use it. If not, accept HTTP. Um, but in this case, I'll leave all this. I can configure all this after the installation. So there are some roles that you have to have installed. So um, client communication goes to a management point. So I want the management point on this machine. I want a distribution point where clients can download source files from, and management point is where they download policy information and communicate with and report information to. I don't want to join the customer experience improvement program. Thank you, Microsoft. And then a summary of all the settings that I've selected, and I can go next, much like many Microsoft products out there, just everything in a wizard form. You can of course install this and automate it using PowerShell, using a script. So again, I'll pause the video um, and then come back when it's finished the prerequisite check and then when it's starting the installation. So it finished the prerequisite check or prerequisite check, and it's saying, hey, the SQL Server process memory allocation. I have to reserve a minimum of 8 gig of memory for the cars and primary site, a minimum of 4 gig. It's just giving a warning that make sure you have enough resources. There's a test environment. If it were to be a production environment, I would say take this really seriously. Otherwise, you could end up in a situation where your server is really slow and responds really, really slowly. So in this case, because I'm just using this as a test environment, I'll leave that as it is and I'll begin the installation. So this will take a long time. Just be prepared for that. Again, that depends on your server. It depends on what resources you have on your server. So it could take a really long time. So be prepared to wait for a long time. So for this, I'll just pause the video again, and once it's done, we'll come back and then we'll carry on and complete the rest of the process, which is to verify all our installation and just verify how do you verify if things has gone on well. If something broke in the middle, what logs do you check? We'll come back to view that. So here we are. So the installation is completed, and you can view the some status here, and we can't see any error messages or any warnings. So you can click this option here to view the log. And what this log will show you is ConfigMgr setup.log. So that's located under the root, under the C drive. You find this log here, ConfigMgr setup.log, and that's the log that we're seeing here. And so actually the best way to view these logs would be to use a tool that comes with Configuration Manager 2012 called cmtrace. If we go under Program Files, under the installation directory for Config Manager, under Tools, I have cmtrace here. And I can open the log file and just drag this into cmtrace. So I'll close the default one. And here we go. So here's the log. So this is much more easy to read. So I mean, the main thing we want to make sure is that it completed successfully. So that's the main thing we want to make sure. And from all we can see, this completed successfully. So you can see all the steps it did, successfully completed monitoring, and so yeah, you will see some of these error messages. So that doesn't mean it didn't complete successfully. So you can view that log file. Another thing we can do is we can actually go here and open the Config Manager console and just view the status of the site. So here is the Config Manager console. And also just to mention that in the root of the C drives, you see all the installation log files, config manager admin UI setup.log, which is I think just the log for the wizard that we used, and all these other logs. So this one is the one that checks for the prerequisites and checks if there are any failures. So prerequisite check-in is completed. So you can just go through all these log files in the root of the C drive and see what happened there. If there were to be like any failures, and you can check these logs and see what the failure is. So let's say at the end of everything, you come here and you notice and there's an error message where it stops somewhere, or you got an error message about failures or warnings or anything, you can just go view the logs with cmtrace and see what happened. So another thing that we can do with regards to this, we can just open the config manager console like I'm doing now and just go ahead and view the status of the site. So I can see down the monitoring here. And I can expand and see the expand system status. I can click on the site status and just view, make sure that the site status is okay, make sure it's all green, everything showing okay, site server role, okay, database server, okay, component server, distribution point and management point. Can view the component status also. Just make sure that the components are okay. So some of these ones are like you get this until you make some configuration changes, like it's saying, hey, NoSQL backup configured and all that stuff. But we'll get to all that later in the series. So I hope this has been helpful to show you just some important steps to consider whenever you're installing a config manager 22 of our two standalone site. So again, this is the process we follow. We extend the header schema, um, then we created a system management container in Active Directory and then assigned a config manager server full control to the object and all descendant objects. We verified that config manager prerequisites are installed like the IIS features like .NET Framework 4.5 and 3.5, like bits and RDC, um, and Windows ADK installed. You can install MDT too, but it's not a prerequisite. You can install it before or after. And then we install the configuration manager site, and then we check their logs and our installation logs, which are located in the root of the C drive to make sure that everything is okay. And if there's anything that goes wrong, we'll be able to find them in these logs. So I hope that was really helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next demo. Bye.